Greetings, dear friends. In our 74th video of our series, we say good evening to you all.
Good evening.
Yes, let's start reading from the page we stopped at last week. Nights follow days with certain intervals. In this regard, each region on the earth has an adjustment, a periodical order according to the season. In certain seasons, the durations of nights and days always stay fixed. All of these are states that occur within unfailing devices. In the world, states and orders occurring in every event and situation, and within an ordered rhythm and great harmony are the manifestations of the general harmony of the world. There is not a disordered, defective thing. All events are made manifested as regulated, and assisted in degrees in the evolution of each being. The world is a small part of the universe which is a vast harmony. None of the things that occur here can go outside of this harmony. If it does, it cannot exist. For harmony means the events becoming harmonized, adapted, and complementary at each point of the great evolutionary path. And this expresses that all motions which constitute the events become completely merged and fused with each other. Nevertheless, every being, every matter part, every vibration is each a motion complex. We have previously mentioned that no particle of the whole universe can be free of the beams of light. This divine light is the harmony itself, and all motions of the universe can exist only by the power of this divine light. We have stated this point as well. Therefore, to break away from the harmony means to be free of motions, and for any matter or being which is free of motion, its existence or permanence cannot be considered. Thus, wherever motion exists, there is certainly a manifestation of universal harmony.
This passage we read feels like poetry. It flows like water, reflecting an immense order. And the universal harmony is the harmony we work hard on our developmental path to entirely become of, to be with, to be one with. In our worldly life, it manifests as adaptation, and as human beings, because we are a member of a community and in sociological relation with other people. If we can say our group or community is in harmony, then this means that we feel the suitability, synchronization, and adaptation between our own vibrations and the vibrations of others. And this may be one of the best examples of universal harmony at the level of humankind at this level of hydrogen atom cosmos. Of course, when we say this level, I know that I imply a lower state, yet these are our worldly concepts due to 3D perception we have in our physical bodies. However, as the developmental levels, like concentric spheres ever widening, our material concepts cease to mean anything. Still, because of the conditions of worldly life and the limited perception we have in these bodies, we consider converging on the plan of duty and the subtler realms as ascending, going up, reaching higher levels. Indeed, this is a primitive way of perception, but because these are described as above and below in the religious texts, hence, are deeply imprinted on our unconscious and vocabulary. Still, such words and descriptions must only mean levels of development to us, and in this sense, going up and above means becoming in harmony with the universal laws in proportion to our level of comprehension, and in that state, the humanoid descriptions and traits cease to be, because we talk about the comprehension of our essence being. You may ask that, aren't we of that harmony, right now? Of course, we are, but only in proportion to the level of our perception, our comprehension, our responsibilities, our agency.
We had read that wherever the being focuses on in the universe, comprehension is there. And also, the 7/8 of our essence being's energy field is directed to our physical body, to the possibilities that exist on this planet. Because our being is on an ongoing developmental process, which progress step by step towards that complete comprehension through the experiences it acquires in its incarnations in this world. And this means that, within the hydrogen matter cosmos, while in this world matter, we cannot have that complete comprehension. Yes, we know this very well, don't we? Whenever a few sparks of comprehension occur, the defense mechanisms of our sensual side get activated and lull us back to sleep. These sparks are so elusive, we cannot grasp them for long. In the passage we read last week, there is this sentence: And all these orders and devices are established on the path of preparing infinite sources of possibilities to the world beings within the general evolutionary flow of universe. So this is a system established to allow the general flow of evolution within the universe. And this general flow of evolution must be valid in many realms, in many dimensions, in many cosmoses that we don't know at all. And for the world beings, this flow manifests in all events that are regulated and assisted in degrees in the evolution of each being. Of course, when seen from our current level of development, we cannot understand how this chaotic world can be a part of a divine order. It looks like disorder to us. Yet, from this level of development we currently live at, we cannot see the cause and effect chains behind each and every event. And because of this fact, we see only disorder. Still, when I read about that in the fields of sciences, an order within chaos gets discovered almost every day, I feel that we reached a level in our development as humankind that we begin to intuit this divine order. After all, within everything we consider chaotic, there are states that give service to each other, that complement each other, in short, that give an existential reason to each other, and we, as humans living in the linear time, can only make those connections between these states after the fact, at hindsight. For example, a few days ago, a close friend of mine who battled with cancer and survived said to me that, "It is good that I experienced this. While I was getting chemo I couldn't think and say this, but now, seeing things from today's perspective, I understand that life had to slap me hard so I could set on the right path." Her words made me think that our own disorder means, when we displace or digress ourselves from our own path, this misalignment gets corrected by another plot twist that will replace us on our path. I mean, if we live in harmony with nature, and as you know, by nature we mean the whole system, then there is nothing like disorder. Yet, please don't misunderstand me. I don't talk about living in nature, going wild as animals to be in harmony with nature. Even trying to be harmony with our frontal cortex would be very beneficial, because as human beings, this relatively recent development of our brains require us to think and act in different ways than we used to do. And it seems that this seemingly chaotic period we live in is actually an indicator of the further advancement in the development of human beings. Yes, things look different when seen from our relative perspective, yet from the perspective of the beings, this recent level of development in the human brain and body must be very productive and beneficial, otherwise, so many beings would not be incarnating on this planet in millions, in billions. We are now over 8 billion human beings in this world.
Order of disorder is a nice phrase. Actually, the source of the order of disorder is our comprehension. I mean, naming those appearances as disorder is due to the insufficiency of our comprehension. Our human comprehension is not sufficient in regard to this milieu we live in the universe. We cannot completely understand the whole flow of events. And when we cannot understand those events, they repeat until we understand. Because of this fact, we humans ask and ask, why such thing happened to me, this is not fair, I don't deserve this or that, why I always attract those toxic types, why this or that happens to us again and again, etc. What we feel as unfairness is similar to a young child's reaction to life when parents do and say things the child cannot understand the reasons behind those actions of adults. And when we really understand that we are a part of this immense and magnificent order, but because we, for the time being, cannot comprehend the intricate and almost endless cause and effect chains behind the interactions among all parts that manifest as events, then we cannot use words like disorder or chaos. Then, with the widening of comprehension, we begin to notice that things are not unfair, evil, or unjust anymore. We begin to notice and understand that events we used to describe as such are actually full of lessons to be learnt, to benefit from. At this point, I'd like to underline a very important thing. When you think order, please don't consider this order as a fixed line of arranged domino tiles that will push each other one by one and the resultant picture will be our end. On the contrary, in this divine order domino tiles change places all the time in accordance with each choice and action we make, yet the resultant picture will be the same. And the result is evolution. This is the purpose of our development. Let's not forget this, the purpose is evolution. We evolve, but the system ensures our developing in our reality through encountering events by changing the placement of all those myriad domino tiles in accordance with the attitude, choices, and actions we have from the level of our comprehension when we faced with those events. And this topic leads us to destiny, to the freedom of choice, to the human condition, because this freedom of choice is a deputation, a burden, just as mentioned in this verse in Quran, at Surah Al-Ahzab. Indeed, we offered the trust to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, and they declined to bear it and feared it, but man undertook to bear it. And this means how important for us to reach the level of comprehension in order to deal with our own choices and actions and to make ever more correct choices and actions. Yes, there is a divine order, and please understand, I cannot help but use worldly descriptions to explain this. This divine order is governed and managed and directed by the organizers, the groups and cadres of beings in duty at a plan, which is called as Plan of Duty. Later we will read in this book that this divine order is made up of vibrations and motion modules. These are focal points of energy. And these vibrations are actually dimensions of wavelengths. In other words, this is an ocean of possibilities. I like this definition. Imagine watching the ocean, a calm stretch of an ocean. It is sea everywhere, no land in sight. And waves, small ones, big ones, small ones on the big ones on bigger ones, waves carry waves, waves crash with waves yet become a merged wave and move on the surface of the ocean. Likewise, in and on the ocean of possibilities, the beings in duty and organizers in duty set vibrations in motion at a certain synchronization, at a certain rhythm in order to create tsunamis that crash on the land. Well, I talk poetically, but I want to mean the manifestation or occurrence of life events. Still, this way of thinking, this metaphor of waves in an ocean may be useful for our dear friends. In physics, the superposition of waves, that is, waves adding on each other to create bigger waves, is calculated by formulas. And you know, great global events, mass actions of people begin with a small incident or incitation. As you see, the word tsunami I use to describe this great synchronization of small and large possibilities of waves superpose on in order to bring out an occurrence. There was this video of metronomes that are started in different moments, and after a while, first a single one, then other ones become in sync with each other, and at the end we see that all metronomes are in perfect sync. Yes, with such mechanisms, many tasks and duties in the universe are done. But again, please don't think of a council of entities in white robes that decide about what to happen and not to happen, and hocus pocus, they make things happen or don't happen. No, this is not the case. The cards or the domino tiles are constantly and continuously shuffled because of our freedom of choice, because by choosing mostly from the sensuality, from the earthly craving side of our conscience mechanism, we kick those domino tiles mistakenly backward or forward, but the beings in duty acknowledge our human condition, they know that this is the only way we can learn. Yes, we toss those tiles here and there, but still, the beings in duty ensures that at the end those tiles, when completely down, will reveal a picture, a pattern. And this has been ensured at the end of each previous world cycle, and those beings are now the beings in duty. As you see, these are topics too hard to talk about without using worldly descriptions and definitions. Of course, then you can ask, how do I know these? I study spiritualism and physics. I am an engineer, and before the disclosure of this book, I was against the idea of combining these two fields of study. Yet, on the first page of this book, I saw that the first word was matter. Then, I sat down and studied physics, quantum physics, particle physics, and each new thing I learn about these, new insights help me to understand the divine order and the universe better and better. So, I'd suggest our dear friends to combine both sides, spirit and matter, as much as they can.
We both follow the well-known Nassim Haramein's Instagram account. And he says, anything considered spiritual or metaphysical is generally just the physics we do not yet understand. And I acknowledge and appreciate all those fellow human beings that work hard to understand metaphysics by physics or physics with metaphysics, and try hard to explain the connections they discovered among ancient knowledge and modern breakthroughs, against all odds put on their path by the conservative circles in both fields of study. Some of our dear friends couldn't hear your previous words about above and below, and they ask for some clarification, that if you meant an infinite direction when you said without direction.
Actually, both means the same. An infinite direction means directionless, of course, from the perspective of the above, higher plans, not from our worldly level. And when we say above, we need to talk about a state of non-locality. What is non-locality? There is a theory of entanglement, and Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein had quarreled over this theory. To Einstein, this was nonsense, because the theory was that information is faster than the speed of light. Einstein didn't accept this, but he was wrong. Years later, 3 scientists proved this theory and received Nobel Prize this year. And their experiment and findings were so crazy that the field of physics is almost in upheaval. In this now proven theory, we talk about a system that cannot be accepted by human mind because it is against the laws of our three-dimensional physics. Yet, now it is proven that a pair of particle or electron, regardless of the distance between them, instantly share information. This does not mean that information from one particle travels faster than light to reach the other particle. No, it means, this is non-locality. For the subatomic particles there is so spatial limitedness like locality. Yes, information does not travel from a point to another point, but because we can see the space only as three-dimensional, we think that it travels. Actually, from the vantage point of the above, of the higher plan, the system we live in is everywhere at once. Because of this, we cannot say above and below, left and right, etc. And let me say that Einstein was right about that the speed of the hydrogen atom cosmos cannot be faster than the speed of light. Yet our approach to spirituality can easily accept the contrary phenomena such as dedoublement, astral projection, bilocation cases. Because what we talk about here is a universal architecture, and within it, distance and closeness are out of question because the entire information work together. If we try to understand this in this way, then, this sentence we read in passage, this divine light is the harmony itself, becomes more meaningful. That is, it becomes the harmony itself, that is, it becomes the whole, belonging to the whole. Yes, we use sentences and phrases like, we are one, or if we know our Creator, we become of the oneness, etc. out of habit. We don't understand what we mean by saying such phrases, but we like to say these, because when we talk like this, it lets other people think that we know what we say. Yet, now, as spirituality and science are becoming more and more compatible, this understanding of harmony will become more meaningful, so much that, as we talk about it we will feel the awe of this meaning.
There are other profound expressions in this passage I'd like to repeat. Every being, every matter part, every vibration is each a motion complex. No particle of the whole universe can be free of the beams of light. So, there is no matter in the universe that did not receive an influence. Influences, filtered through the unitary, are permeated into the universe, in varying intensity and degrees in proportion to the structure of matter. Because of this, every being, every matter part, every vibration, is each a motion complex. And each of us is a matter part, each being is, here, that annoying mosquito, there, the tree bark, and also a cell in that tree bark, have a function in the universe as a motion complex. And we call this motion as change. And we cannot stop change because the formations, deformations, transformations of matter parts occur all the time. Everything turns into something else. Nothing gets lost or destroyed. And if we advance in life as a human being, and also as a motion complex, then we need to look at the events from a different angle, from a different perspective. And we read in this passage, all motions which constitute the events become completely merged and fused with each other. Then, this means for all of us to adapt to life, to be in harmony with life. Then, we really need to have this different look at life events in order to intuit the dynamics behind all those motions and occurrences. And we must ask, why this happened to me? What will I learn from this? What is that I should have done but couldn't but must do different now? How can I do this differently? Are my options limited, or should I widen my perspective to see more? In this sense, our main task in this life to develop ever-widening perspective to events, and to break our automatisms. We must change the meanings we ascribe to things, and we need to accomplish these tasks properly in this lifetime, because our current lifetime is the culmination point of those 500 to 700 lifetimes, even if in our superficial perception of space-time. Because of this, our current lifetime is precious. And in this culmination point, we are at the point where the waves you mentioned that added on each other are about to reach the land of developmental stage we are at. And when this big wave, the tsunami of the accumulated experiences, impressions and information hit that coastline, it will gain an extra momentum and will bring out a huge reaction.
In most passages, the word motion used in this book means frequency. I'd like to point that first. And here, in this passage, the book gives us another term, vibration. Actually, frequency means the number of occurrences of a repeating event, in our case, of the vibrations per unit of time. And here we read that each vibration is a motion complex. And if you can keep in mind the metaphor I used when I talked about the small waves upon big waves and big waves upon bigger waves, I'd like to add that, please don't think that using a certain frequency for a specific task, let's say healing etc., can work. It is nonsense, just a fantasy. Because there are other frequencies carrying that frequency, other wavelengths. We cannot do anything with a single frequency. We do things as the resultant or through the intersections of multitude of frequencies. Our thinking works in this way, our neurological system works in this way, our astral body or aura works in this way. In this sense, we are an immense complex of motions, an immense complex of vibrations. And our being, our essence being, as a conceptual point of high energies and influences gathered by the indirect influences of our spirit, is a much more immense motion complex. Motion upon motion, motions superpose motions in an intentionally arrayed and adjusted manner. I think, trying to think energy in such terms and images, it may help us to understand our own self and the universe better. And if you let me revisit those 3D concepts like above and below that we discussed before, spatium is a good example for this need to change our previous concepts. People who had near-death experiences and the deceased people that are contacted after their death in the spiritistic sessions describe that, they went up, ascended, went out from their bodies and floated upwards. However, in the divine order and the universe we read that, this is not the case, because the spatium is just an isolated state of another frequency level of our world. It is not somewhere else, out of the world, out of space etc. Even though we feel the lightness of leaving the heaviness of the physical body as floating upwards, and even though our subconscious is deeply imprinted with such definitions, still, this is not the case.
Yes, let's continue reading. Seen from the perspective of mankind, all things which appear such as goodness, bad, disorder, meaninglessness, lowness, highness, disrespect, are relative. These are but barren judgments which are concluded because of mankind's lack of vision about the universal order and harmony. A lion's attacking a defenseless fawn and feeding it to his cubs, big fish eating small fish, uncountable killings and preying in the plant, animal and human realms, which continue from the moment the world is built, mankind's destroying their own peace and ease by attacking each other, inviting their days full of uncountable torture and suffering by their own acts and deeds, and eventually making the world a hell, a dungeon for themselves. Such states which are seen as outrageous are actually necessary, imperative, and certainly beneficial states, which occur under the control of the beings in duty connected to the administrative mechanism, in accordance with the necessities of the great harmony. They flow on within the great order and harmony of the cosmos, which advances in accordance with the purpose of preparing the ever-new developmental stages of all beings and mankind. Mankind can and will see this state only in relation to their evolution. None of these is unnecessary, outrageous, and unwarranted within the evolutionary order and general harmony of the universe. These concepts of outrageousness and needlessness are relativities based on one-sided views which are accepted and valued by mankind because of the imperativeness of the world life, which manifests, again, within the evolutionary harmony. Indeed, the ones who observe the world objectively by separating from the feelings for a moment can see this truth clearly at that moment. When they look at the insect kingdom, they soon appreciate that in spite of all those fights and battles among them, a great harmony ensuring their growth and development always exists, and within this harmony, these fights and battles carry great significance as well. The struggles and fights of the inhabitants of an anthill engaged with their fellow creatures in defending their nest are not in vain and unnecessary. Others attacking them, and their responding to the attackers, are devices which automatically make those beings acquire capabilities that are needed to be taught by the ant life. All these states are the parts of the great order of nature which comes from the original directives that are accrued to these ants, bees, and insects, so those beings can do the simplest and automatic preparations for the states of gathering, organizing, acquiring merits for communal plans, and eventually one day to join mankind who has taken the path of the sublime plan of duty. By the means of their organizations automatically established in this way, they do faithfully a great number of deeds and duties without harming each other for surviving, breeding their generations, preserving the well-being of their community, and hidden behind all of these activities, for the sake of ensuring their development. And they do not slack and neglect their deeds at all. We said they do these deeds without harming each other, because these world bodies which eat each other at any moment, according to the world comprehension, actually help each other through these acts unknowingly, and without comprehending, and this is to be, as such, is an imperative in their communal plans. So, as is observed in sometimes positive and sometimes negative ways, the state of complying to and participating in the necessities of the great order and harmony flows on within the whole realm of plants, animals, and mankind, from the smallest to the largest.
When we read about the examples of insects in this passage, I'd like to start by telling you about an experience of mine that deeply impressed me. During my college years, me and my roommate were studying like mad men for the finals before our graduation, and in the room we rented, one night we saw 2 spiders. I think we were a little bit crazy and exhausted and looking for some fun, albeit in a weird way. Because we said these are our other roommates, we chose one for each, and named our spider, and decided to feed them with some horseflies buzzing around our heads, annoying us. Both spiders were the same size. The horsefly I found was a little bit plump, the one my roommate found was a little bit smaller. We simply placed the fly we caught to the web of our spider. And when the flies tried to move, instincts of spiders got activated. They ran to the flies and started to wrap the flies with their sticky silk threads so quickly that we were watching their activity in shock. Then, spiders started to suck the fluids from the flies, and after a while, we were back to our studies, and the next day, when we remembered to check our spider roommates, we discovered them dead. Both spiders had died. Now, I can tell you what I have learned from this weird experiment and experience, because it had impressed me so deeply that, later I read books and articles on spiders, I tried to understand what had happened to them. And I learnt that each spider has a certain capacity of producing silk to make a web and capture an insect in the proper size the spider can deal with. I mean, if the insect is too big, then the spider dies if it captures and sucks its fluids because spider's abdomen gets ruptured. So, I understood that automatisms in nature works perfectly, not only for the spiders but for the existence of their prey, as well. And now, years later, from the spiritual studies I have done, I can add more meaning to what I have learnt. As a human being, with my insufficient comprehension regarding to the working of nature, I had attempted to intervene, I had tried to control things that are way beyond my level of development. That is why we need to get more and more developed until we reach the initial steps of the plan of duty, without knowing the workings of the whole system, how we can partake in its working as beings. Because of this, in each stage of our development we need to learn mechanical, automatic lessons, and we need to learn lessons from nature, also, we need to learn spiritual lessons. Yes, I learnt that important lesson. Actions that we do that are beyond our level of comprehension harms the self or the others. Because of this, when we do, even an action of goodness, we need to evaluate properly if our action will be beneficial or not for that person. Because, when we cannot or don't consider the possible effects of our good deeds, this may be harmful for everyone involved. As the saying goes, too much of a good thing is bad.
Because, what happened when you fed the spider? It didn't do what is necessary for a spider to do. And this applies to all of us, especially the paradox of the teens and their parents we witness in our times. Parents think that their children should not suffer from too much hard work and not feel any lack of things as they did in their childhood. So they try to give everything they ask, but then, their children own too many things without making any efforts or working to earn things. However, when human beings don't invest any energy and add values to things, then they miss the lessons they will learn from that experience. I see questions on the chat box, for example. Does the ocean of possibilities constantly change? And a second question. What does the time becoming denser or intense mean?
As I previously mentioned, talking about a system with our limited and insufficient descriptions, definitions, and adjectives is very hard. Yet, as new discoveries in the quantum level of our physical reality compel us to leave all the habitual vocabulary we used so far to explain directions, sizes, numbers, etc., we are going towards a reality none of these will work to express things. Instead, we will begin to learn, find and discover much higher meanings. Because of this, describing the universe as an ocean of possibilities, as an ocean of vibrations is still wrong. As I just said, even the loftiest adjectives we can think will lose the values or meanings we ascribe to them, because those are outmoded and even primitive. Higher is deeper, which one? Higher? Deeper? Both? None. So, please understand that we are going towards subtler plans where such definitions lose all those worldly or anthropomorphic meanings.
Another question. Can the time of death change in accordance with our choices? Yes, there is a passage in the divine order and the universe. Let me read. As a matter of fact, although even one life of man is regulated and planned, it is not possible to express the duration of it with certainty because of the imperatives of destiny. This impossibility is caused by the ever-changeability of the results of that being's efforts, as a consequence of some freedoms recognized to him, which will be appreciated by the plan of destiny. As you can see, nothing is fixed and it can change by our efforts for widening our comprehension, by working to gain new insights, by breaking out of automatisms and habits, in short, by our choices made from the intuition of duty side of our conscience mechanism. Then, cards are reshuffled. I mean, everything is rearranged and readjusted at that instant. Yet, if a human being is destined to die, then she or he dies. In short, variations are endless in accordance with the needs of the beings. And, again, let me remind you, dear friends, please watch our previous videos and read the whole book. You will find more answers to your questions. Well, thank you so much for your attendance. Hoping to see you all next week. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.